Yes, and so I invite you to join me as we center ourselves this morning, and we simply bless this day. We bless this day by blessing this center that we get to come to on Sunday. We bless all those from our tech team to our choir to our teachers for coming and serving today. We bless the message that we're about to receive. But most of all, we bless each other. And we bless those who are on their way, whether it be physically or in their mind. So please help me anchor this by saying, and so it is. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Woohoo! The snow was a bit of a surprise. I was getting out like seeds and dirt and things. Guess I'll put that stuff away. So, during this time of the year, we celebrate and participate in the season of peace from January 30th to April 4th. And so each Sunday, instead of honoring all paths, we pick a particular path that we honor. And today, we are going to honor the Jewish prayer for peace. And I'm going to have Barbara be my candle lighter today. Yay. And so, as I said, this is the Jewish prayer for peace. Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, that we may walk the paths of the Most High. And we shall beat our swords into plowshares and our spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. And none shall be afraid, for the mouth of the Lord of hosts have spoken. That's a great prayer. Ooh. I felt that one. And of course, our second candle is our healing candle of love. And I invite you to bring to mind anybody that you would wish to be included in this flame of light and of love today. And now that our flames of faith are fully lighted, we move forward into our celebration, realizing and reaffirming that all paths lead to God. Thank you, Barbara. And so we have two inspirational quotes today. The first one comes from a book called The Life of Reason, George Santayana. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And our second quote comes from Ernest Holmes from The Science of Mind. We all have the ability to transcend previous experiences and rise triumphant above them. But we shall never triumph over them while we persist in going through the old mental reactions.
Thank you, Linda. We have an opportunity, and I want everyone to mark your calendar, save the date. And it is May 19th, it's a Sunday. We are going to have a guest speaker, and afterwards she is going to do a workshop. And I don't know which one she's going to do yet. I think it's going to be on heartivism. As opposed to activism, it is heartivism. But our guest is the Reverend Bonnie Rose. She is the minister at Ventura Center for Spiritual Living in California. I first met her at Asilomar last summer. You will love her. She is an amazing lady. She's not big and flashy and showy, you know, she's not Beckwith or, even a Roger Teal or a Petra Wildis. She's more like your sister or your mom or your daughter. She speaks in regular shirt sleeve English, but she puts on the most powerful workshop. I think she's probably one of the few people in the world that could give lessons in vulnerability to Brene Brown. Mark that date. You don't want to miss Reverend Bonnie Rose. And that was my minister's moment. On to music. I don't know where this story came from. I got it from Reverend Scott Aubrey, and either I failed to annotate where he got it or he didn't list it. It's not my story, but the story does serve as a great foundation for today's talk. I used to think that I was a victim of life. Everything bad happened to me. My dad died right before my 5th birthday. My mom was full of unresolved things and super angry for most of my childhood. People left me always, by death and by choice. After living in a victim mindset and being miserable for most of my life, I finally understood that I had to change what I did and how I did it. I could no longer hold on to old stories. I could choose to grow from my experiences and choose another way to live. Although digging deep into my past experiences, healing old hurts, and fixing old belief systems hasn't been easy, but it was worth it. I finally can have compassion for my past, even though I did some things that were terrible. I can now forgive myself for hurting others. I can take steps each day that fill me up instead of tearing me and others down. You and I have so much power over our experiences. We can't control what happens, but we can control how we respond. I heard someone say, I use my memories. I don't let them use me. I resonated so much. I'm not attaching to the things that have happened or the things that I've done, but bringing them forward to change how I respond in the present moment. Well, it's a beautiful thing. And that's really what our talk today is about. Welcome to the Alaska Center for Spiritual Living. Thank all of you who are here. You had the wherewithal to get out and come through the snow and arrive here. Thank you very much for coming. And for those of you who are en route and will get here a little before noon, we thank you for coming too, and we'll have you invite you to listen to the recorded broadcast. Thank you for inviting us into your home, and for those of you who are here. There's so much going on now. Linda talked about it's a season of peace. We focus on that for the 64 days. Today is also the beginning of Ramadan. Have 28 days of fasting for our Muslim brothers and sisters. Today is, of course, the first day of daylight savings time, and Thursday is Pi Day. Our monthly theme is That's How We've Never Done It. The title of my talk today is Up Until Now. I had 3 major points. First, I've always blank, blank, blank. Number 2, stay curious. And number 3, both negative and positive apply. I've always done it that way. You've always done it that way. It's time to acknowledge our past the good, the bad, and the ugly. While disentangling ourselves from it, it's time to forgive and release old patterns, even those that used to work very, very well, if they no longer serve us. Let's replace our old, well, I've always blank, I've always done it that way, with a new script. Let's substitute up until now. Up until now, my experience has been blank, blank, blank. But now I choose, and you get to fill in your own blank of something better. The Buddha taught us that attachment with its complement, resistance, was the root of all suffering. When we honor our past and learn from it without attachment or resistance, we can move freely into our future. I submit that it is time to learn from our past. Just like in the sacred reading today, if we don't learn from our past, we are destined to relive it. To learn from our past, even the uncomfortable things. Whew. As you know, Ann and I went to the National Convention this year. It was in Charleston, South Carolina, and something that I hadn't known before, but it was a really high percentage. It's like 60 or 70% of the slaves that entered the United States of America came through the port at Charleston. There were those fingerprints of the divine all over this. We had wanted to go to the Museum of International Museum of African America, the International African American Museum. Spit it out there. We'd wanted to go, but it was all the tickets were sold, and so we didn't think we were going to be able to go. But on the morning that we had an afternoon free, we were planning. We were a beach walk, and we were going to do all kinds of things. And we ran into a lady, and she said, "I don't know why I'm asking you, but I'm going over to the museum this afternoon, and I've got space in my car for two." And it's like $100 cab ride to get there. Well, that's great, but we didn't get tickets. Don't worry about it. There will be tickets. So we stepped forth in faith, and we rode with her over there. We walked right up, we got tickets, and we went through. And it was a deeply powerful experience. We spent an hour and a half there. That's all we had allowed for it. We were told we could do it in that, and we couldn't have done that in a day and a half. As I went through the museum, I had just finished going through a segment that talked about the number of slaves that died on the trip over. And there were a very high percentage. It was like 30% of the slaves that were captured died on the way over. Conditions were unbelievable. They had pictures of them packed into these slave ships. And I had just finished that segment, and I was standing there. There were numerous cadets. Military school called the Citadel is located right there in Charleston. And as I sat there feeling the emotion of what the conditions must have been like, or what they were, I realized that standing next to me was a young cadet. I looked over, and it was a young black woman. And we were reading the same thing, standing right next to each other. And I don't know where it came from, but it just gurgled up out of me. And I looked at her and I said, "How can you ever forgive what my ancestors did to your ancestors?" she looked at me, and it was almost like I'd thrown a glass of cold water in her face for a second, and then she looked down, and we sat there in silence for a moment, and I thought, oh God, what have you done now, Don? You opened your big mouth. But then I heard her say, I don't think it's so much about forgiveness. I think it's about acknowledging what happened and vowing to never let it happen again. This is exactly what we are saying. This is what today's lesson is all about. Ernest Holmes, in Living the Science of Mind, wrote, we are all carrying the negative experiences of our past into the future, merely because we have not disconnected them from our minds. If we are creating a negative future, it is because we have not changed our thought about it. It's not that we're going to deny the past or ignore the past or stuff it down. It's that we need to experience that, and we need to vow to never let that happen again. We can choose differently. In the big book, Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes wrote, as we have proven that principle is not bound by precedent, we go into that realm which says, behold, I make things new, not carrying with us the limited belief of the reason why it cannot be. We can choose differently. Okay, so that takes us on to my second point, stay curious. How do we move beyond that? How do we do it? We do it by staying curious. You can ask yourself questions such as, what if? Or, can I imagine this? Or my favorite is, consider the possibilities. We talk about living in a quantum world of infinite quantum possibilities. Well, we are constantly living in that world of quantum possibilities. We can choose a new outcome. Stay curious. There's a phrase that is common today, and it is out of the box thinking. We talk about, thinking outside the box. Well, that has come to mean unusual or not common thinking, something different than what we've been doing. And in that, it's great. It's a great phrase, whatever it is. But I think it's helpful to know where that phrase came from. And that came from actually a guy by the name of Jack Welch. He was the CEO and chairman of the board of the General Electric Company. And he was addressing a group of engineers at the appliance division, in the head of all the appliance factories. And what he challenged them was, he said, okay, we're in all these factories and we're making all these wonderful appliances, and we make the appliance and then we put it in a big brown cardboard box and we put it on a train or a plane or a truck and we send it out to the consumers. And you spend all of your time thinking about what's going inside that box. You spend your time working on what's going on inside the box and how we can make it cheaper, or how we can make it better, or how we can make it different, how all of the things that go on inside the box. Well, I'm inviting you today to, instead of thinking about what's going on in the box, I want you to think about what's going on outside the box. I want you to think about when that box arrives at that household, wherever it is, and the new owners open up this appliance, washer, dryer, refrigerator, whatever it is, and they see it for the first time, and they're all excited to get it. I want you to think about them. What are they experiencing? And how can we capture that? And how can we? It's not going to come down with $5 or $10 less expensive refrigerator, or maybe even $100. But what's going to happen when they have a refrigerator that they love? I challenge you to think outside the box. A psychiatrist by the name of Bessel van der Kolk, in his book, The Body Keeps the Score, says, The two most important phrases in therapy are notice that and what happens next. Once you start approaching your life with curiosity rather than fear, everything shifts. While I'm on electrical items, Edison was told that he had a little thing that he followed when he was interviewing people for high positions. He would invite them to lunch, and he would pre-order soup. Whether they wanted it or not, they were given a bowl of soup. And he watched very closely what they did. For those that reached over for the salt and pepper and immediately salted it and put pepper in it before they ever tasted it, he did not accept them. He did not invite them back for the next interview. He wanted people who wanted to investigate their surroundings first and then do it. If they tasted the soup, maybe they liked it the way it was, or maybe they felt that it did need a little more salt or pepper. But they tasted it first. They remained curious. My third point, both negative and positive apply. As humans, we tend to be better at releasing the negative, but not as so good at stepping away from something that was good, but may have outlived its usefulness. I know there's a big feeling within our center that I wish we could get back to the days when, we were packed here on every Sunday, and wouldn't it be great to go back? And it would. But we're not. We can no longer go back in time than if we had a time machine. It's a different world that we live in today, and how we deliver it is different. But the principles that we teach remain the same. Creation is not static. Energy constantly flows into new forms, in and out again. Sometimes we remain attached to things, to ideas, to processes, relationships, and rules. And sometimes those processes and ideas and relationships and rules change, and they dissolve right out from underneath us. A business can be sold. A job is reconfigured or eliminated. And I read this one and I couldn't help but chuckle. A favorite food is no longer physically tolerated. I love onions, and I always will. Why a big, juicy burger just isn't complete unless it's got a big, thick slice of red onion on it.
And pickles.
And I can do pickles, but I can't do onion anymore. I love onions, but they don't love me back. And my tummy says it's had enough. So I have to learn to adapt. I learn to love my burgers without the onion. Just like in our opening story, starting right now, we can honor and bless our past patterns as we gently untangle ourselves from any attachment or resistance. We can forgive what needs forgiving, the bad for the pain it triggered, and the good for its impermanence. Forgive ourselves for our own judgment of it all. Today, trusting the truth of Spirit in us, through us, as us, we step with courage and curiosity into a brand new now. We can never move past what our ancestors did in terms of slavery. But if we acknowledge it, we can move past it and vow to never let that happen again. Conclusion. what I want you to, ooh, it's getting late. This is what I want you to remember. While we can be tempted to stay comfortable in our discomfort, reliving the experiences, beliefs, and behaviors of our past, it's time to accept Spirit's invitation into the new, unlimited possibilities of the present. Let's set the intention to shine the light of consciousness into our old, less than conscious habits of thinking and doing. Let's replace our old story of, well, I've always done it that way, with a new script of, up until now, I did it that way. And so it's with this spirit of recognizing our past and knowing that in spite of these facts, in spite of what has happened that we cannot change, we are the masters of our own destiny and we can choose a new outcome. And so with that as a platform, I invite my colleagues, the practitioners, to join me in holding a higher truth, a truth that sees beyond lack and limitation, that sees beyond illness, that sees beyond separation, to a place where, yes, these things are true, these things happen, but we don't have to have them, let them continue. We can know that we live in an abundant universe. And as we open ourselves up to greater and greater good, it continues to flow. Yes, we recognize that there is disease, but we also know that there is that part of us that is divine. And we know that the divine has never been sick. And so that is the part of ourselves that we embrace. And when we give our prayers for others, we know that truth for them as well. And even though we may feel separation, even though we may feel shame and guilt for what we've done or what others have done, we can let that go because we know that we can never be separate from one another and we can never be separate from God. For that infinite presence that is God is in each and every one of us at every moment. And so it is with that awareness that we give thanks. We give thanks for our awareness of the presence of a power that's greater than we are, that lies within us. And we can just step back and let it go and let it be. And so it is. Now is the time in the service where we are afforded the opportunity to step into the law of circulation. I talked about that last week. Throw in another little tidbit this week. Many of you know that I love seeing the science behind some of the things that we talk about. And I have talked before about George Barna. He studies religion in the United States. Brilliant guy, and the work they do is amazing. They did a study, and what they did is they asked people if they were generous or not, and they put themselves into one bucket or the other: generous people and not quite so generous people. But then they interviewed those people and they asked them questions. More than half of those people who reported making charitable donations within the last year, 54%, say that they have received extraordinary generosity from others. Compared with the group who were not generous, only 36% of them reported receiving generosity from others. Now, this isn't our philosophy isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. It's not trying to make you rich by giving everything away. Well, that sounds like a cult, doesn't it? That's not it. But these are scientific facts. These are people that were interviewed. This is what they did, and this is what they felt. And I invite you to step into that realm of generosity. And I do affirmation. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, and so it is. Thank you.
I'm thankful, so grateful. I am one in the Spirit all around me. I'm thankful, so grateful. I trust in God. I surrender. I am one in the Spirit all around me. I surrender. I trust in God. I'm thankful, so grateful. I am one in the Spirit all around me. I'm thankful, so grateful. I trust in God. I surrender. I am one in the Spirit all around me. I surrender. I trust in God. I'm thankful, so grateful. I am one in the Spirit all around me. I'm thankful, so grateful. I trust in God.
Nice. Let's give it up for that choir.
Yes.
So as we close today's service, as we release being victims of our own life and respond with compassion for our past, let's step outside that box with curiosity and thanksgiving for this service, for this day, for this powerful message and inspiration. We leave with the blessings of a safe journey home. And please help me anchor this by saying, and so it is.